All right. Well, hello everyone. Here we are, and there are a few of us on the call today. There may be more people joining us through the course of this session. And today we are into the career insights sessions. We do these once a month through nabs, and we've got another one coming up in June. And we're back at it again in September after doing a few very focused sessions for a specific segment there. People coming into the country and finding their way from as navigating their way in this industry and this space. I'm Trevor Cape. Welcome to this Career Insight session. It's put in by nabs. Nabs is the National Advertising Benevolent Society, and really it's a bit of a catch net for folks in the communications, advertising, and marketing industry, where there's a lot of transition, a lot of transformation. A lot of things can change really quickly in this industry, and it's a place where you need to be somewhat nimble and be able to carve your own path. And I've worked with thousands of people through job transition over the last many years. I've worked with NABS for about 9 years now, and I love helping people figure out what do they need to be doing next. Especially in times of great change. Often we can be bombarded by opportunities or even the perception that feels like, wow, there's just no relevant opportunities out there. Well, it really helps to start within. So I'm going to start with a little exercise today where we can just really tune into the truths of what we want to connect to as we're moving forward with job search. So moving forward in this space, greetings and hello, welcome. As I said, there will be folks joining us as we proceed. But in this, I would really like you to think about what matters to you about work. Sometimes when we're looking for next steps, it might be hard to remember who we really are. We might see job postings that look moderately relevant, and then we wonder, well, should we even apply? And there are a lot of folks that have managed to build careers by circumstance and fluke, and maybe they met the right person and they suggested something and it pointed them in a particular direction, and before you know it, the trajectory's set. Generally, I find people tend to spend more time thinking about their shopping list than what are they going to do with their life. And so that's why I like to slow down and say, hey, what you choose to do with your time might be one of the most important decisions you make in your life. And as creatives, as many of us are, we know that we need to be more than just reactive in the world. Yes, there are many things that we can respond to or reply to, and hope someone's going to be right there to give us just the right nudge at the right time. But I would like to invite everyone on this call to consider, it might just be exactly the right time for you to move forward with something that's uniquely right for you. And well, how do we start with that? Well, a good way to start is to start inside, and I'm going to give you the first piece of homework. I'm going to give you a few pieces of homework in this little section today, and one thing I'd like you to think about are, what are 5 truths about you? There are some things that you're particularly good at that a lot of the rest of the world might not be as good at. I know some of the faces that are appearing on the call, and I can tell that there are folks here with dedicated skill sets, people who can make companies famous with just the right messaging and the right contacts and communications. I see someone in the audience here I know to be exceptionally good at fine-tuning copy and making sure that when organizations are communicating to the world, they're communicating what they're intending to communicate and doing it with precision and accuracy. I see an artist on the call who is, has great intuitive understanding about human emotions and relationship dynamics, and she has an ability to put this into her work and get that out into the world. I see someone who's really wonderful with people, that helps bring the best forward in human and customer and relationship management experience. I'm sure we all have to some degree various parts of these skills, but comes a point where we have to look at ourselves and go, who are we anyways? And it can be really tempting when we're in change just to apply to whatever gets tossed our way or whatever comes across our radar. But today's the day I'd like you to sort of stop that for a sec and go inwards. and just go, okay, let me breathe into some 5 immutable truths about me. So you may not have them top of mind right now, but I'll share with you in a little breathing exercise that you may wish to adapt and turn into your own process. Something that might help you kind of tune your satellite dish to exactly what frequency you want to fill yourself up with. One thing that's true is when people are interviewing, as detailed and thorough as they might be in the construction of questions or curious about the specific background that you've got, something magical happens when someone comes to an interview and knows that it's all about energy. And you're there as an experience manager for your interviewer. And you're probably creating a dynamic that makes them want to talk to you more. It makes them want to work with you more. This is very exciting to open up this territory, because you have an opportunity, let's say when you're interviewing or networking, to make it the best half hour of that person's day. And in doing so, you might be more effective than if you told that story from 5 years ago just that little bit better. All right? So let's think about, who are we and where are we going? For me, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to say, I love doing great work. I'm going to take another breath and say, I love making a difference. I love working with good people, and when I see the good in people, they tend to come forward and work with me from the goodness of themselves. There are many places where I could make a big impact right now, and I'm being very selective about where I want to make that. I'm having the courage to be specific about what I know I can do and offer. Part of career management is managing the career so it doesn't eat up your life. Part of managing your career is inviting in opportunities that allow us to grow and expand into newer, greater versions of ourselves than we could have realized in past paradigms. Today's a good day to have a good day. And so on. Point is, before we get onto something, before we're about to take that call, before we're about to have an interview or a meeting, it's really helpful to just breathe into the truth of the strength of ourselves. Because, we're all a range of experience. We're all a range of emotional experience. And if we have the ability to tap in to the truest potential, where we're really creating value, where we're really enjoying what we're doing so much that the people who work with us start really enjoying what they're doing, something magical can happen. And it's okay that you're not going to be a great fit everywhere. In fact, one of my most effective networking exercises was reaching out to a few recruiters I knew and trusted. And I said, I'm hitting the market and I've done cool things. And I can't tell you right now if I'm a people guy or a marketing guy. Turns out I'm both. So I found a way of bringing that together. But at the time, I didn't know. And I said, hey, you guys are masters of fit. I'm going to be a terrible fit in most places, but an exceptional fit in some. And where I know I'm going to be a fit will be a place that is a high trust, high latitude environment where we're making a real impact in the lives of people, where we're on the same page about where we're going and I'm given enough space to create inside of that. Some people, especially when they're early in their career or they don't know what they're doing, really need a lot of direction. Some people need, very explicit direction on timings and what's being done and how and with whom and all of this. But the more we advance and mature in our careers, the more we understand all of the multi-stakeholder impacts of what we're doing. And the more we can earn that trust to do that good work, the greater impact we can actually have. Steve Jobs said it well. It's like you don't hire brilliant people and tell them what to do. No, it's like you hire brilliant people so they can tell you what you need to do. Right? So I'm sure for each one of us, we've gathered some experience and strength where that's going to be of meaningful value to whomever we're working with. So really grounding in these kinds of truths really helps with the job search. It's we don't have to be stimulated from the outside in to understand what our true opportunities are. We might have a chance to really kind of envision. Maybe another helpful exercise. This is second piece of homework I would encourage you to do. You know, is think back and go, what are the favorite parts of work you've had? Some people really love doing detailed, meticulous work behind the scenes. And some people really can't stand that. Some people really love the human interaction, human experience management. That light in their eyes, the eyes of someone who's surprised and delighted by your amazing work, that can be nourishment. It's one form of compensation, actually, to be doing meaningful and valuable work. And when I speak to a lot of folks that are in transition, especially into the second half of their careers and their lives, it seems to become an increasing drive to kind of give back. How can we pay back? How can we help better the world with everything that we've been learning? Right? So it would really be helpful if you take stock of, well, what are those things that you've been learning? Whether you learned it by doing what you love or learned it by doing what you didn't love, it's still got some value in terms of what you can extract from understanding, okay, well, who you are and how to move forward. So really a lot about the creative job search is actually being creative and creating from the truth of you, right? So it's one thing to kind of like puzzle fit your job description into what you think the bots might be looking for as they're scanning your resume, and it kind of sometimes can dehumanize the process, right? When in the reality, it's actually people hiring people. Your resume or your words, your backstory, all of this kind of like, it kind of supports a story, but the story is based largely on the feeling. When we meet someone who's really lit up about the kinds of things that we want to do in the organization, and we can engage those people and, onboard them as like a co-strategist in the vision of the organization and how it's being realized, you can bring more of yourself to the table. Now, there's different kinds of work. In marketing, advertising, and communications industry, it's not uncommon for people in the second half of their careers to be much more independent. There's an embarrassing model in the advertising world, which can be like, hey, hire them young and cheap and work them half to death and then send them to the street early. And, crude as it is, I've met a lot of brilliant people that have done a ton of great work for a lot of top companies, but might not look so appealing, in agency world just because of the implicit bias that, some organizations are taking bold steps to modernize or, become more fair. But in reality, there's also a great opportunity that you can realize if you have a lot of skills and strengths and maybe a network, you know. Whether you've been doing it consciously or not, you've been building a network throughout your life. Some people have met you. Some people know about you. Some people have formed opinions about you. Chances are most of the opinions people have formed about you, if you've not been walking around like a bag of stress, has been probably pretty good. And that means that if they've had a positive interaction with you, I'm sure they'd love to help you if only they knew how. Now, one of the best ways to get help is to help get people to introduce you to the people that you need to know. When you've done a little work to really mine your will haves and won't haves, you've done a little work to look at your 5 immutable truths. You've done a little work to recognize, well, what value you really produce. Imagine you're the person who's hiring you that needs to talk to your boss and say, hey, I need to hire this person I just met. You can certainly expect that boss to sort of say, well, why that person? You know, Maybe if you're really on top of your value and you understand it, you might have had an ability to convey your message that you've thoughtfully, truthfully crafted and planted it in the person that you spoke to. Maybe they can represent that on your behalf to whatever hiring manager you need to get the approval to to move through with, right? So a lot of this in terms of the job search is going back to really understanding your values and understanding the value that you create and understanding the reason you want to work. Some people want to work to really to become really famous in their craft. Some people want to work to become, you know, top tier designers or communicators or business development people or maybe relationship managers. There are all kinds of pieces to the puzzle, and you don't actually have to be great at everything. Thank goodness there are accountants. I spent 14 years at the world's largest branding company, and a few years in, when it was obvious that I was leaning into growth and promotable and could create greater impact, I was offered a career in accounting. And I was like, well, Matt, thank you for thinking of me for this, but no, it's not me. You know, I I I can get detail oriented, but it was like it wasn't really my true passion. I have a deep passion for language. I love helping people find words that represent themselves and their visions better, right? And I know that there are people that I meet in my career that need to kind of see things from the perspective that I see things. And this is partly what I've been able to integrate into coaching, because I've made coaching and teaching really the focus of my business. Since I left agency world about 12 years ago, I set up a coaching and teaching business. And I've done a lot of great work working with people, especially folks that are maybe like just not really finding their place in the world yet. Or maybe like work's a drag. There's a lot of people that don't like Mondays. It's shocking, right? And so, hey, let's just peel that back a little bit and go, hey, what can you do that will make you love Mondays? Because, hey, Mondays often, especially for folks that are in kind of the Monday Friday paradigm, this is a tone setting day. This is where you get active and activate your purpose. You lean right back into the work you're doing. But if you're mailing it in, just kind of having a day job to kind of get to the rest of your life, or just, feeling like it's like shoveling coal in a fire, as many people do, you know, it might be a little bit depleting of your energy to work in an environment like that. So to do a creative job search, I think it's really helpful to understand what things in life energize us and what things deplete us. There's another reflective list I'd like you to add to your homework from today, right? What energizes you and what depletes you? Now when we look at jobs, seems that right now over 85% of jobs in this industry are being found through networking, right? So you can be on your back foot applying to whatever, posting you're seeing on LinkedIn along with 500 other unqualified people. Or or you could kind of take the initiative and get the ear of the very decision makers that need you in the first place. Maybe they don't have to review a whole range of resumes, some that fit and some that don't. Maybe you have enough passion that you're ahead of the whole crowd that is all stuck on their back foot. I bet there are people who need you right now. And to understand who those people are, the first thing is you got to sort of tune into yourself and just go, well, what do you need to be at? What do you love doing? Where are you really making a difference in the world? And if it's harder to see, it's like, hey, you might even want to just loop back with some good people that you've worked with. There's nothing wrong with going with a networking ask that even looks like, I'm currently in transition evaluating a few opportunities, and I've worked with you in the past and I always enjoy your perspectives. Where do you think my greatest value lies? Or I'm starting to recognize that in the course of my career, the experience and interactions I've had with people seem to differentiate me from other people that do the kind of work that I do. Have you found that to be true in your experience? You know, this also comes into like managing the reference call, right? At some point when we're really looking for a job, they may say, can you give me a couple of references? Well, usually by the time it gets to the reference check, they're not just kind of considering you among many. You're usually either the person that they're doing a disaster check for, or you're one of three people that, if they're really sort of thorough and diligent and want to get all of the information they can to inform their decision. But you're at least shortlisted if they're gonna be making a reference check call. So in terms of managing those, you're going to want to loop back with the people that are doing your reference, right? So you can imagine that the most valued reference is probably going to be your most recent boss. But in some cases, I work with folks that things didn't work out with their recent boss. Maybe they worked with other people that have better insight into the true value that they create. Maybe when asked, what's it like working with that person, you know what's going to come out of their mouth is gold and supportive. Whereas with other people, maybe the relationship's not quite like that. So you're going to want to pick your references very carefully. And you're going to want to pick your references, and you're going to want to reach out to them and say, hey, I have a great opportunity in the works, and it's for this. And, they've asked for a few references. Would you be willing to be a reference for me? And if it's a yes, then you might want to give them some indication about what parts of your experience you think is going to be most valuable for them to hear. Thanks so much for offering to be a reference for me. Looking back on our work together, I'm most proud of how we managed relationships, projects, and budgets. Would you agree? You know? Or another approach is you could say, hey, thanks so much for being my reference. Would you be open to having a 5-minute call sometime this week? Get back on their radar. Get them to remember your frequency. Get them to remember what was great about working with you. It may have aged differently with them than it did with you. But with a quick phone call, you can reharmonize on the opportunity. And most people who are willing to do a reference for you are probably going to want to shine the best light they possibly can on you because they like you and they want you to win. Right? So knowing that, give them an opportunity to support you in a strategic and meaningful way. And in terms of getting the reference, well, you might want to just sort of say, okay, well, here's the person, here's the relationship, report it to them, during this period, here's an email and a phone number. You can give a high level story, but let the reference kind of do the talking. And, people are references are an interesting dynamic because, large organizations have typically universally been advised by their legal teams to be as minimal as possible with what they share. Because there's a legal risk associated with giving too good a reference or too bad a reference. And so big bank references and things, that's like, oh, yeah, they worked there, this title, these years, that's all we're allowed to say. So you might need a little, like an informal reference. You might need someone who will actually, advocate for you a little better than that, and so recognize that some organizations are kind of handcuffed and not able to do that. You're going to need to pick the people who can speak on your behalf. So, there we go. A little bit on references. So to getting started, target lists, super important. How to look for job target lists are really helpful. If you come from agency world, you might have experienced many different types of clients. You might have experienced different people in different industries. And you know that people who are in the automotive industry vibe differently than the healthcare industry. You know that banking and the creative industry are also very different, right? And you may discover that, hey, there are certain kinds of clients or certain types of people you vibe with well. If you really enjoy doing work in a particular sector, you can make yourself really, you can narrow your lens in on that sector and do great work there. Very early on when I was working with Knightsbridge as a coach in their stable, I sort of put my hand up and said, I would like to work with the senior most communicators. Send me all your best communicators and I'll help them communicate better. Well, it was a rare and strange ask, but I recognized that there were a lot of people with deep expertise in the marketing world, and I had the kind of expertise. Other coaches had experience in other industries. So I said, okay, well, looking around, it's like I've got some expertise in professional services, and I've got some expertise working with creatives and people who already have good language, but really want to find precisely the right words and love the sport of communicating correctly. So in being able to attract those type of clients, then it really sharpened my focus and my ability to really strengthen messaging and positioning, and that was really fun. So as you're making your target list, you're probably going to want a number of things. You want organization name. Maybe even before you go to organizations, you might even want to start with industry. Hey, I've decided to focus my skills in this particular industry. Oh, and here are the organizations that are in this industry that seem to be doing things that I'm kind of drawn to. I like where they're going with this brand. Or I love the promise of the organization and where it's going, but it seems like their marketing's all a little funky. Maybe I can help them out with that. There's probably a missing piece in whatever organization you're going to. And that missing piece, it's going to look like you. And most job descriptions are not perfectly written. Usually it's like someone's made an attempt to define what they think they're hiring for. And the funny thing is, it's probably not even the person you're reporting to that's developed that job description. In many cases, it's someone from HR that has done their best attempt to try and satisfy the needs of the organization and ask for what they want, but they don't really know exactly what they need yet. So understanding that, you want to develop a high trust conversation with the senior most people involved in the area that you can serve, so that you can open up the conversations and say, hey, where are we going with this? Whatever job you take on, you're probably going to want to act as and be seen as a strategic partner. A strategic partner that could really help contribute significant value in this particular area. And hey, maybe early in your career you might have had an over dominant boss that didn't give you a lot of airtime. Maybe early in your career you might have been told what to do and how to do it, and maybe you kind of develop this thing that, oh, maybe I don't want to question authority, or maybe I don't want to get confrontational, or maybe it's like, oh, that's their territory. But now looking on, it's like a few years have gone by, you recognize you have some seniority and some maturity, you have some insights that could really help the big picture. Then you're going to want to build that trust to be able to win the buy-in, to exert the influence from the well-meaning and intelligent place you're coming from. Right? You want to be talking to organizations that need someone like you. Maybe you look at what they're doing and you go, hey, you're a great company, but you're underrepresented. I can help you out. Or, in some cases, it's like, hey, experience management is at the heart of this service business. And how people feel when they walk in and they walk out sets tone for how we're known in community and how quickly people come back, or whatever that is. And so maybe you're particularly good at this area. Maybe you decide to create some sort of training and onboarding program for people that help them enter your organization at the level and standard that you want to champion. The world needs leaders like you. And it's hard to know exactly, like, right away, well, where's my area of leadership? Some leaders are independent contributors, and some leaders have teams of people to work through and with. Both are valid. Independent contributor is actually a cool space to be in if you're more of that nature. And it doesn't mean you're not as effective or important or should be compensated as well as someone who's got a team of people working with you, because there's a different kind of value that offers and brings, right? So in terms of what each of us are doing, it's really interesting to kind of decide, well, how can we really identify and articulate what is that great strength that we bring to market that not only meets sort of the table stakes, which are usually expressed in the job description, but also the differentiators that they might not have thought of. Maybe there's a piece of your experience that allows you to contribute, from a more informed and intelligent place. I look back to some of the interviews I've conducted and participated in over the years, and one of them was particularly effective. It was like sitting there going through the job description, and it was a fairly junior interviewer. And so, it was defaulting to, hey, let me ask you about this next bullet point on the job description. And what about this bullet point? 3 bullet points in, I turned over the paper. I said, look, I can do absolutely everything on this job description, but let me tell you a little bit about what differentiates me as a candidate here. And the conversation got infinitely more interesting at that point, because we're right into the heart of what are we doing here as a business. And you have to have the courage to contribute wherever you go, because there is a significant contribution that each one of us can make wherever it is we're going. Right? So creative job search is, step one is getting aligned in self, really tuning in to, okay, well, what's the value we want to produce? What's the value we want to create? What's the energy state we want to be in? And what's that energy state we can promise and deliver about the world around us? and the jobs we're doing. And then identifying, okay, well, who are the people that probably need to know that we exist? Who are the people that might just need exactly what it is that we're doing? So that may look like a list of 10 to 15 companies initially. You know, who are the kind of organizations with that you want to talk to the senior most person that will give you some face time? And that can be in person or online. It doesn't really matter, right? But can you get a little one-on-one time with someone who actually sits with the business problem? Because one of the visions I'd like you to consider when you take on a job or a contract, you're actually taking the weight of an issue off somebody's shoulders and you're putting it on your own. You're saying, hey, you know what? You won't have to think about this issue in that same way anymore because I'm accountable and I own it. And whatever it is that you choose to own it. Right? And then, so when you've looked at that, what organizations are on your target list, you might want to then think about, well, what would your perfect title be? It might be the same title you've had before, but it might not be. Some of us may be looking to make different turns in our career. Maybe you're ready to upshift and see yourself in a new light. Maybe your energy has shifted and you're taking care of yourself better than you used to, so you have greater capacity to make impact. Maybe you're a director before, but now you're ready to be a chief officer. Or maybe you were a manager before, but you're moving into a director role. If you're directing things, there's a real power in that. Like, it's all the theater of life, right? And you think about the movie of life, and who are the directors? Directors are putting something together, right? So for those of us that are interviewing and considering roles in the director level space, I would encourage you to dive into the idea of director. And, what kind of experiences can you be trusted to direct? The more you know that and can promise and deliver that, the stronger the bond can be between you and the opportunity that you take on. So then, okay, well, what do they call people like you in an organization like that? Someone says, well, I'm a manager. Well, what the hell does that mean? In one company, it could mean an overinflated title. And in another company, it can mean an underrepresented title that keeps it at a lower pay grade. It's not always altruistic the way pay grades happen in every organization. And, it's sometimes people can say, well, what's the market value for that? Well, the market value for that's what you negotiate. Market values are established by negotiation. And so as much as some organizations rely back on data and stats to try and determine, okay, well, what's the fair thing to pay that person? We're in a hot market right now. There are people who are getting another 20K by going across the street to do the same role with a competitive agency. It's a funny time, and yet, like a lot of us, are still kind of licking our wounds from being in the closet through a pandemic for 2 years. There's also a real opportunity and a surge to connect and create. So it's an interesting time right now. And it's an interesting time. The more we really kind of come to the concentrated power and the truth of why we do our work, the more we're going to find our tribe and do the work that we need to do. So you figure out what your role is probably going to be in there. And then, a little LinkedIn research might take you to determine, well, who's the person that probably hires people like you? And then you're going to want to initiate some contact. If you're lucky, they may already be a first degree connection on LinkedIn. You may already know them, and it might be easy for you to send them a note and say, hey, I see you're looking to do some things in an area that I have a lot of strength in. Would you be open to a conversation? But, in some cases, that person may be one person removed. Maybe you need to call up someone you used to work with and say, hey, I see you're connected to the head of communications at this organization. I've got an offering right now that would probably make a world of difference to them, and I wonder if you'd be open to putting us in touch. It really doesn't take too much work to send a connecting email to two people. It's not a big ask. You're not even asking them to endorse you, just putting them in touch. And they may have good things to say about you. Fabulous. That's wonderful. But your interest and your recognition of the problem or the issue that you'd be able to champion on behalf of that organization. That gives you a little amperage to be able to come to your networking meetings with wisdom and intelligence and with a point of view. My point of view is that by strengthening this area of your business, the entire business will grow. That seems to be a sensible point of view, whatever part of the business it is you're championing. Right? So see if you can get talking to the people who need to meet you. If they want to meet you, if they want someone who's got your experience and your work and your attitude, they are not going to be bummed out to be introduced to you. It is not a drag that you're going networking. You're not looking to leech and steal people's time. I'm saying this because I've heard every excuse in the book why people don't do this, and why I myself have experienced resistance over the years. Sometimes you just got to look at it in the eye and say it's not relevant. Like right now, I have really important work to do in this area, and I know there are people who need it, and I'm currently connecting the dots. There's real power in saying I'm currently interviewing with a number of leaders in this space. Even if you just decided today to start interviewing them, you might be initiating some of the interviews that you go to. You're not sitting back waiting to get picked. You have to pick yourself first. And when you've picked yourself first, hey, someone's already voted for you. You. And so you're already a desired candidate. Right? So getting into that place and not giving away all your power is important, because you'll also have to negotiate for the value you're going to command. And if you're seen to be a junior person that might require a lot of training and hand-holding, that's more expensive to hire someone like that than someone who can hit the ground running and make impact right away. So if you think you can hit the ground running and make impact right away, that would be a good thing to elucidate. Make it really easy for people to see how easy and enjoyable it is to work with you. And through your conversations, as you take active interest, as you get in front of the people who need people like you get a chance to ask some important questions. Questions like, what's your current and aspirational culture here? You might ask, what does success look like in this area or role right now? What are your greatest challenges that pertain to the space that I'm an expert in? Unearth the pain points. Often when they hire, it's the reason people hire often is they're in pain. They don't have enough staff to take on what they're trying to do, right? And if it's all like a happy-go-lucky conversation, you might not get to that pain point, which is where they're willing to spend money from. So you're going to want them to open up about what it is they're trying to do and what they're having a hard time with. And as they talk about what they want and then they need, you're going to need to smile at them reassuringly and emanate your confidence that you can take it on if you feel you can take it on. If they're talking about their problems and you're like salivating, and these are exactly the issues I love championing, wow, that's a good situation. If they're boring you to tears with what they're looking for, get out of there. Get out of there fast. You're going to hate work. Don't do that. Don't do that to your life, and don't do that to them. A bad fit's costly to everybody, right? And you have a right to pursue a good fit, because if it fits well for you, there's a good chance it's going to fit well with the people that are hiring you, right? And so I'd like you to really think about if you're doing your short list of brands. Let's say you're looking at 30 agencies. Well, what kind of work do they do? What's their reputation on the street? What do people say about the management style in that place? I think by having a few informal conversations with folks who know, you may be able to really get to the heart of the culture of an organization that you're considering. And you may just scratch a bunch off your list. And that's valuable work. To identify a dead end and decide not to go down it, liberates you. Lets you re-steer your focus. And this is where I think it's really powerful for folks that have lost jobs recently. There's a lot of folks I meet and work with might have been working in a certain place, and maybe by not by their own choice, they've lost their job. And there's a feeling of rejection that comes with that. It's like, what? They don't want me as is? Like, and it can be hard. And then it can start to formulate a self view. And before you know it, you're thinking of yourself like a reject. And I would like you to quickly reframe rejection as redirection. If you're rejected in one place, it's just like hitting a wall. It bounces you back to a better truth. If you get redirected into a thing where you're actually able to make greater impact and enjoy yourself more, maybe even be compensated better. These are all powerful paradigms that can be embraced. So I think I've moved swiftly into transition when I lost my agency role and was really figuring out what next. I put a few rules in place about my job search, and they were very effective. And some of the rules that I put in place, I've also coached clients to put in place, and they've done well with them too. And one of them, audaciously so, is I'm going to enjoy my job search. There are far too many people who do not enjoy their job search. Oh boy, you know what? If you're not enjoying your job search, I bet you're not going to interview too well either. And you can't leave it to other people to make your job search enjoyable. Right? It's like, oh, that person wasn't nice to meet with, or oh, it's hard for this. It's like, no. You need to own the heck out of your emotional landscape. You are creating your life by how you think and by how you feel. And by bringing your cultivated feelings to market, that's a powerful thing. Because mostly when people are hiring, it's a fairly emotional decision. Whether you're buying like a house or a car or which employee you're going to pick. Sure, you can do the lists. There are folks that do the pros and cons and try to look, in an unbiased way. To try and get humans to behave in an unbiased way is one of the greatest challenges of our century. But the reality is, we all have our own biases. And wouldn't it be great to find opportunities where people already harmonize with you, where you're able to create impact really swiftly? By creating this vision and holding it and planting the seeds of that vision in people who care, you might find that you're attracting greater and more relevant opportunities more swiftly. And that's a powerful thing. In terms of your resume, this is also where you can get more proactive about the resume and going, okay, a resume well done is a 2-part marketing document. It's going to be promise and proof. You're going to want to have something like a headline or a profile statement at the top that helps people understand what's your promise. Whether it's like, a high impact customer relations lead, adept at managing and supporting teams of service oriented people to create exceptional customer experiences. If you're hiring someone who's already thought about that and thought to put it into words and made it into a promise, that's probably going to be more powerful than someone whose resume skips the promise and goes right to the past. Right? It's like, there's some resumes, the first drafts I see that even look like they're fragments of job descriptions. Don't tell me what they asked you to do. Tell me what you actually did with that. It's way more powerful. And I'm sure that, you can probably find some statistics somewhere that help back up the story of the impact that you've had. Even if you're not as a numbers person. Maybe there's some statistics on how the organization grew when you were responsible for the care and stewardship of your area there. Some people need a number to be convinced. So figure out what numbers help tell your story. So the promise and proof model becomes important on the resume. It's like, here's what I'm promising to do for your organization. Then the professional experience, education, all of that stuff. This all ends up being proof that you'll probably deliver on that promise that you're making. Oh, of course she's promising to be that. Look at what she's done in the past. Makes sense. Cover letters. Some people say, should I do cover letters or not? Well, like half people don't even read cover letters. If you're going to do a cover letter, don't make it a homework assignment. Don't make big, thick, daunting, scary paragraphs that someone who's time starved is gonna have to put at the bottom of the pile and keep there for a while. Get right to the heart of things really quickly. Half to a quarter to three-quarters of a page, maybe a couple bullet points, key aspects that position me to thrive in the role. But, if you think you're a great fit for the role, declare it. I'm excited to see that you're looking to hire having read the job description, considered the organization, I believe I'd be a perfect fit. You know, 5 strengths that I bring to the role include dot, 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 dot. I'm excited to help you grow. Is there a time next week we could meet? Ask for the meeting. How many cover letters have I seen where people don't even ask for the meeting? Oh, thank you humbly for the time of considering. It's almost like you're expecting them not to call you back. If you're in your power, you're not going to expect them not to call you back. That would be the most foolish business move they could make all year. If you're really the person, all you need to do is help make it easy for them to find you, for them to recognize you in the strength of what you're bringing anyways. And the people that are able to see that quickly are the people you can build really good rapport with often. And rapport has so much to do with moving forward in the job search. You're also going to want to post regularly on LinkedIn or your social media, of choice. LinkedIn tends to be the best channel of the social media channels because it's designed for business. So folks with a business focus and business expectations might be looking there more frequently than other places. But, if you're really good at what you do and you have a point of view about the importance of what you do, I'm sure either you could even write a paragraph a week or share a news article a week, and within a month or two, everyone in your network is going to be aware of what you're communicating about. You might be seen as their local expert. And so when you knock on their door and say, hey, Becky, I see you're connected to Jim over there. Would you be open to giving us, an introduction? I'd love to help them out with their communications. It would be so much easier for Becky to make that move, having seen 7 of your posts on that area. Then they can say, hey, Jim, this person is a great expert in communications and could probably help you out with some things. Over to you to connect. And networking is a real pay it forward thing too. Who can you help? Who can you proactively help? Maybe you'll come into jobs that you could do, but they might not be perfect for you. Oh, but imagine what happens if you help your friend by saying, hey, actually, I think this person might be the perfect person. Help them get a job and help the organization see you as a helper and a value generator. Because whatever level you're going for, whether it's stock person or CEO, you're a value creator. So remembering, your job title is just another title for value creator. It's just getting a little more specific about how you create value. So when you see yourself as a value creator and you come to work with that attitude and you're adopting the consideration and mindset of the role of directly above you, what does your boss need? Can you perceive that need in advance? Can you really be on the same page so that you liberate them to do other stuff too? That's a lot of value creation. So there's a lot we can do to kind of move proactively in our job search, to get off the back foot onto the front foot, to go from being reactive to being creative, to truly pursue the path that resonates with who you are and what you even feel like you might be on this planet to do. So I encourage you to mind that and to, be daringly unique in terms of what you're offering, because you're not like every other person. No one's like every other person. But there's some people that really dumb themselves down in their marketing communications to try and look like every other person, or look what the job description seems to be asking for. And just remember, it's people hiring people. And if people see your wild colors and then it's a good fit with their palette, it's going to be so much more fun than a contorted version of yourself. So I'm going to turn off the camera now, and we're going to go to a live coaching session with the folks that are staying on the call, and let's see who's here and open up where we're at.